When I started here 15 years ago, it was pretty standard. You had a traditional based, and we've been just talking about classroom, and I would go around during each chapter test and speak to my students individually. It was very disruptive, and it was hard to do. ¿Cómo te llamas? And they'd have to say me llamo, and they'd have to go through the whole things. But they were in a quiet room, and it was supposed to be everybody quiet, but I had to see 24 students each individually in those 52 minutes, and so it wasn't working very well for me. So then that morphed into a midterm and sometimes also a final oral exam, where I would take time from my semester and cancel classes. It wasn't really canceling it, although students would always see it as days that they didn't have to show up, so I was canceling class. Well, I was sitting in my office listening to bad Spanish for 4 hours a day for 4 days in that week, because I teach a 4-credit class. So by the time Thursday of the fourth hour of that fourth day, my ears were bleeding, and I've lost a whole week of face-to-face time. So that's okay, because really they can't hide. It had to be done. It was, they had to produce. They couldn't have their buddy. They couldn't have a piece of paper. They couldn't have their phone to talk to them. They had to absolutely do it. It works okay, and I still do that. But it takes 4 days out of a 16-week semester that I sometimes don't have. What happens if I need to, cancel class or whatever, and so then I'm scrambling to make that up? Well, I started to talk to Regina about this and how could we use D2L to kind of streamline that process. And so what we came up with was uploading the video of the students speaking Spanish to D2L. Now I've cut out all 4 of those days listening to bad Spanish. Now it's just 2 or 3 hours of bad Spanish at home, but at least I can cry on my own time and perhaps have 6 or 8 glasses of wine with it so that I can get through my day. And they are still coming to class as normal. So it worked out pretty well. I was pretty loose with my expectations because students always want to know, how many seconds does it have to be? What are the parameters? And I'm always like, speak Spanish. That's all you have to do. I didn't care if it was in present tense. I didn't care if it was in past tense. I just wanted them to speak for 1 minute. That was the only parameter that I put on that, is that you needed to produce for 1 minute. So we uploaded it to D2L. For the first time, we did it as, how did we do that? As content, right? And then the students were supposed to listen to it and add some.
We put it in the discussion.
In the discussion form, okay. And that worked okay. Mostly the students said, oh, it was great, your pronunciation was perfect, or something really trite, and not, they just went through the motions. So this last semester, I had them do it to the Dropbox. So I was the only one listening to it. That made them feel a little bit more comfortable about speaking Spanish in front of their friends, because it's embarrassing. Whatever. It's embarrassing that you're embarrassed, but whatever. So they put it into a Dropbox, and then I just watched it. And then I took, I made sure it was the minute time. I went through and tallied for how many grammar errors, how many grievous pronunciation problems, because, obviously they're just learning Spanish. But I do have an example of one of the videos. So they're quick and easy. Most of them do it on their iPhones or their Androids or whatever, and then they upload it. Some go above and beyond and add some stuff to it. I should probably find one of those as well. That was pretty cute. I did the midterm for my Spanish 2, and I did the final video exam for my Spanish 1. And one of the guys did Feliz Navidad in the background and had, snowflakes coming down. I didn't expect any of that, but, kudos for that, right? So here's one of the examples of what it would look like. So this is one of my better students.
Hola, me llamo Cristian. Tengo 19 años. Yo soy de Chicago. Me gusta jugar fútbol y voleibol. Yo sé hablar español muy bien, pero no sé escribirlo. Mi comida favorita es el pozole. Es un platillo mexicano. Yo tengo 2 hermanas y un hermano.
Okay, so obviously he's just kind of reading it off to the side. But I'm okay with that because that's one of the steps towards fluency. It's not the same as coming into my office and having to produce on the fly, but he had to go through an effort to write down what he was going to talk about. He probably had to practice it before he posted it. I don't know, this guy is of Mexican descent, so this is super easy for him. So maybe he just started talking. But the most typical student, maybe this would have been second semester Spanish, they probably would have had to write it down, maybe use their Google Translate to make sure what they were saying was right. Maybe if they were crazy and came to see me and we could talk about it in my office, and a few did come to see me. And I think those are all good opportunities that they wouldn't have normally, that they had to seek me out and then produce this video. And so it's worked well. I think I'll continue with it. I think I'll still continue with my oral exams in my office. And I think I'll continue with having them post a video as well. Both things are important and valuable. And like Regina said, I'm not a huge tech person, which is what my husband laughed at when I said I was going to come and talk about tech today. He's like, what could you talk about? Well, it's so easy, even a Spanish instructor can do it. Any questions about this? Yes?
Did they, what did they use to record the video?
They use their iPhones, their phones. Yeah, they could use, if they had a webcam, they could use that. I had a couple of students that are like, I don't have a smartphone, but they all have computers, or they all have laptops, or they have access to the library, have ones that they can, the help desk, you can check it out. And this summer, when I first did this, I had a non-traditional student who was like, I can't do that. But he could even do that. So it's not that bad. And sometimes, I don't know, somebody else downloaded some software or some kind of app that he stopped and started it and stopped and started it and like had to join it all together. And they do that without me having to be a part of that whole equation. So they really are way more savvy than what I am. But it was a fun project. Is it something that maybe math professors can do? I don't know. Do you ever have oral exams?
No, but I've thought about it with certain courses.
There you go.
The logistics.
Yeah, it's the time involved with having them come to your office that is just sometimes overwhelming, and this is a good way to take away that.
Stay here. We did some of this with in our GE 1000 course, or your Introduction to College Life course. The same sort of concept after Catherine did what she did. I said, what if we tried this and just had students upload an introduction video? And 28 students, they uploaded the same process, a video just introducing themselves. I had them ask the class a question. And so we uploaded it into the discussion forum. Other students looked at their video and then responded to their question in the discussion. That had two effects. One was the students got to know each other. 28 students in a classroom that see each other once a week are not always going to get to know each other. But they did, and even instructing it to attach a name to a face with a photo. Some of us use photos and have those. It works a little bit. But to attach the name to a live face on a video, after watching the videos in a couple of weeks, I kind of knew who those students were by name. So there are different ways that you can use this process. The other thing about coming to your class, tell the availability of the support. Talk about how you feel support is, and be honest, because sometimes we fail.
No, when I was first putting this out there to my students that they had to produce a video and upload it and all that, they started asking me questions. I said, wait, I'm going to have somebody come in and talk. And so Regina came at the beginning of my two classes that did it for the midterm and talked about how to upload it. And it took her maybe 3 minutes. They had maybe 2 questions per class, and it was quick and easy. And sometimes I think having somebody come from outside makes them pay a little bit more attention than when I tell them, just hit enter, So Regina was always available, and then she always says that she's their consultant, that they are to call her if there's any problems. And there were a couple who did, right? And so it was nice to have that as well. I think the help desk, there were a couple of people also that you had assigned to me maybe, or, said, hey, this is what potentially could happen and this is what you need to tell them. And they were available way more than even what you are available on campus. So it was fantastic. I didn't have to field any of those tech questions beyond, what I told them to do. So yeah, you don't have to be the one who writes the program.